let's find the area of some triangles. So the formula to find the area of a triangle is always the same no matter what orientation or shape the triangle is in. And the formula is the area is 1/2 of the base times the height. The B stands for base and the H stands for height. That means that you need to identify the base and the height. So the base and the height in a triangle will always be identified because they will be perpendicular to each other. They'll be identified and connected to this box that identifies a right angle. So when I see this here, that means then that these two lines right here that form that are connected by the box would be my base and my height. One will be the base, the other will be the height. That also tells me right off the bat that this 10 is going to be a distraction in my problem. So I'm only focused on the 8 and the 16. Now the other thing is that the height is always supposed to come from a vertex and touch the base. So here's a vertex and it's going to be perpendicular to the base. So in this particular case, my height or my H will be 8. And that means that my base is 16. So B is 16. Now that I know that, it's really just plugging the numbers in and doing the math. So if the area is 1/2 of the base times the height, I'm going to rewrite the formula with, instead of B, I'm going to write the number 16. So 1/2 times 16 times the height, which is 8. So here again, if I have 1/2 of 16 times 8, I'll take 1/2 of 16 first. And when you take 1/2 of a number, you're really just dividing it by 2. So when I say 1/2 of 16, I'm really just doing 16 divided by 2. And 16 divided by 2 is 8. So I'm going to bring down everything else, which in this case is times 8. So now I have 8 times 8. And 8 times 8 is 64. And that means that my final answer would be the area of this triangle is 64 units squared. So here's another triangle asking for the area again. And it just so happens that it's the same type of triangle as the last one. And so again, I'm looking for my right angle right here, which means that the two lines that are connected by my right angle will be the base and the height. So the area is 1/2 of the base, 1/2 of the base times the height. And so here I need to identify the base and the height. So again, the height is going to come from a vertex and then be perpendicular to the right angle. Or I'm sorry, to the base, not to the perpendicular to the base. So the 6 will be the height and the 18 will be the base. So I label those so I don't have to think about it anymore. So I'm going to rewrite the formula to say 1/2 of the base. So the base is 18 times the height, which is 6. And again, 1/2 of 18 will be 18 divided by 2, which is 9. Bring down the times 6. And 9 times 6 is 54. So my final area is 54 units squared. So another one in the same vein. Here's my right angle. So these two lines will represent my base and my height. And so I now know that my height will be 6, even though it's turned, because it's coming from a vertex and going perpendicular to the base. That's going to be, the 6 is going to be my height, and 21 will be my base. So the area is 1/2 of the base times the height, 1/2 of the base, which is 21. So half times 21 times 6. And so again, we still have the option that says that I can multiply these numbers in whatever order I want because it's all multiplication. So if I take half of 6, because half of 21 is going to give me a decimal, so I might not want to do that. But let's take half of 6. Half of 6 would be 6 divided by 2, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. So 3, I took care of the half, and I took care of the 6. I have to bring down times 21 because I didn't do any math with that. 3 times 21 is going to be 64. So my final answer, I'm sorry, not 64, 63. 63. So my final answer will be 63 units squared. So here's another triangle. Again, here's my right angle. So that means then that this line here and this line here will represent my base and height. And I can know that means that this side right here is not relevant. So the area is half of the base times the height. And again, this is always available on the reference sheet. And I know that the height comes from the vertex. So the height is 2 and the base is 6. But truthfully, it doesn't really matter. Once you know that those 2 will represent the sides, you could really just multiply them and divide by 2 and be done. So half of the base, which is 6, times the height, which is 2. Half of 6 is 3. Bring down the times 2. And 3 times 2 is 6. So my final area will be 6 units squared. So here's one that I really wanted to get to because in this particular case, you still are looking for a right angle to find your base and the height. The formula has not changed. The area is still half of the base times the height. And again, you're still looking for the box to identify your base and your height. So in this particular case, you're looking for a side. We know that this piece right here is going to be a part of either the base or the height because it is a part of the right angle. But then what you have to do is recognize that this piece right here, this 6, is also perpendicular to that line. So if I made a box right here, this 6 is perpendicular to this 15. So in actuality, I'd be looking at the base and height would be here and here because of the right angle. So it takes a little practice to get used to that, but it's not that difficult to comprehend. So that means then that my height is supposed to basically be a line that extends from the vertex, which in this case, the vertex is here. So this vertex and this vertex are at the same location and it extends perpendicular to the base. So my height is 15 and my base is 6. So now that I have that understanding, my height, so half of the base, which is 6, times the height, which is 15. Again, I take half of 6. Half of 6 is 3. And it's 3 times 15 because times 15 is brought down. And 3 times 15 gives me 45. So my final answer is 45 units squared. So here, what's the area of this triangle? The area is half of the base times the height. And so I'm looking for my sides that are perpendicular, which would be right here. So that means that this 5 is not relevant. So half of the base is going to be 8 and the height is going to be 4. So the base is 8 times the height, which is 4. Half of 8 is 4. So 4 times 4, because times 4 is brought down. 4 times 4 is 16. So my final answer will be 16 units square. So that's it. That's really all you have to do is write the formula, identify the base and the height. Be careful when you have the shapes where the vertex is, where it's not a right angle, or where the vertex is not visibly perpendicular. You just have to extend an imaginary line, but the process does not change. You write the formula, find the base, find the height, multiply the base and height, and take half. So hope that helps. If you have any other issues, reach out to me. Let's get it done.